My Govanen Melonin, and well met indeed. I'm Aragorn Company, head of the modding team behind Divide and Conquer, but welcome, finally, to DCI Last Alliance. And this episode coincides precisely with a little overview of what exactly is DCI Last Alliance. The two videos have been published at the same time, so you can watch them. Do note, at the end of the overview video, I said I was going to play as the Realms in Exile, but I am not. I'm going to play as Rhovanion, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment as we load into the game. But I won't talk about anything else, we'll just dive straight in. So we're playing as Rhovanion. We're going to go with the short victory conditions instead of the long, because they are kind of the same, the only difference really being an extra 12 provinces. So I'm not too concerned about that. So we're going to go with the shorter ones, and then that'll give us a nice flavour of Rhovanion without possibly having to play forever and ever and ever and ever in a day. Rhovanion are a new nation bespoke for DCI Last Alliance. There might be elements that you will have seen before from Third Age Total War, or indeed Divide and Conquer possibly. But as a nation, they are new and a new faction for this mod. So that's why we're choosing Rhovanion. Over here in the east, as you'd expect. We have strong cavalry and good archers. Cavalry was not that great for me, because I'm a useless cavalry commander, but I'm not too bad with archers. And we lack early tier heavy infantry. And one of our finest units are the Frauium horsemen, who I'm looking forward to getting to grips with. Our king is Fritigern, and our capital is Rhovanost, which we shall find out as we dive into the game. So otherwise, all the settings as they would be, and we will go in. So first of all, the very first thing to say, I have put in Adrian von Ziegler and Vindsvept music instead of the mod's default music. So you are not going to hear the music that the mod ships with, because in order to avoid any potential copyright issues, I've just put in the free music I've always been using. And so it'll be Adrian von Ziegler and Vindsvept that we hear, as it just did then. So, welcome to DCI Last Alliance. I will read through most, if not all, of the event messages because everything is new and I want to show it all off as much as I can. So, welcome to Middle-earth. 110 years have passed since Numenor sank, and Elendil's kin fled on 9 ships to found Arnor and Gondor in Middle-earth. Over 18 centuries have passed since Sauron crafted the One Ring, and war erupted with the elves. Almost the same time has passed since Khazad-dûm barred its doors against the Dark Lord, and so also the concord between dwarves and Northmen failed. Many fruitless victories have been won throughout this age, and many hopes have proved empty as dark days have returned. The Dark Lord is on the march once more. Minas Ithil has just been captured, the east and south is moving, and native folks of Eriador have been stirred, and the Misty Mountains crawl with goblins. The time has come to once and for all rid Middle-earth from tyranny and oppression, to shape it in your image, and to see what may stand against the mighty fist of the Alliance. So, some minor notes. Play on very hard, very hard. You should do that in all medieval games. The only difference between the difficulty levels is that the game gives you more money, and on the harder difficulty it gives the enemy a little bit more morale, but that is it. There's no other hidden military buffs or bonuses, and no other, like the AI is not cleverer on the harder difficulties. You just get more money. So always play on very hard, because that's what we always balance them for, and that's what they and DCI have done as well. Also, if you press Shift F1 in this game, you get a cool little faction information scroll, which we shall see in a moment. DCI opts to use this, where you can turn on certain scripts. You can turn on the Balrog of Khazad-dûm, because, technically speaking, the Balrog does not sack Khazad-dûm for another 2,000 years. And that is why it is optional, because it's a bit of a law break. And the Immortal Nazgul is optional, because lots of people don't really like that. But we're going to turn on both and go for it. So this is DCI Last Alliance. If you are interested in the time period that we're in, you want to learn more about that, and you want to learn a little bit more about the factions that are present in this game, then I would implore you to watch the overview video that I've released, or indeed head to Total War Center and read up about DCI Last Alliance. But a very brief summary is that we're at the end of the Second Age. We're about 3,000 years before the events of Third Age Total War and Divide and Conquer. It's a very different landscape that we're in, although it is still Middle-earth. Do note that they use the old Third Age Total War map and not the Divide and Conquer one, which is significantly smaller in size. And something that you'll note by here on screen is the entirety of the Wilderland, which is the region between Erungallen, or Mirkwood as it will be known, and the Sea of Rhûn. And you can see that we can see the entire thing on one screen here, whereas in Divide and Conquer, which of course many of you will know me for, this area is about twice as big. So that's a good indicator of the map changes. So we are playing as the nation of Rhovanion, the sort of principality kingdom, depending on how you look at it. We're led by King Fritigern, but throughout its history, Rhovanion has famous princes, but not so many famous kings. So it's a land of minor princedoms is probably a way to put it. It's a bit like the Holy Roman Empire, I suppose, except that we don't actually have an official emperor. But we contain the lands, of course, of Rhovanion and Dorwinion, and the lands that will eventually be Dale are currently not settled because the men of Rhovanion lived for a very long time here in Rhovanion, before eventually migrating and founding the nations of Dale, the Upper Anduin Vales, and then in time, eventually Rohan itself. So, Ravanost is our capital, and we are obviously a Northman faction, so many of the buildings and things will be fairly similar. So blacksmith, grain exchange, communal farming, poultry pastures as they're called, chicken farming as we call it, public house, mead hall. Oh, mead hall's new though. That's our culture increase building. So instead of in Divide and Conquer, it is shrines, isn't it? We've got a few units that we can tickle our fancy. Oh, I should give you the Shift F1 actually, so that you can see. Oh, I've changed my keys and it's not working. Do ignore that then. So basically there is still a barracks event. It comes in at about the 40th turn, something along those lines. So we will have some better units to get later on. At the moment we've got Freiswehr, Mars Scouts, Wader Spearmen, and a Diplomat. Do we have a Diplomat actually? Because they're quite handy to get. No, we don't. So let's get a Diplomat involved. And how much money do we make? 3,000 gold coins. So let's get a few more units. Our diplomatic start, we're enemies with the Rune Confederacy, who are just normal Rune. They will have an entirely different roster, which is very cool, and I'm looking forward to fighting against that, but otherwise they are just Rune. A lot of our unit designs in the early game do look very similar to the Dale from Third Age Total War, but there are enough changes that it will feel like a different faction. But let's put some of our money to good use. River Run can't do anything. Let's turn the tax rate down. Roar is a castle. Does DCI give faster recruitment in castles? That's what we want to know. Rovanos. You get 2 units of Water Spearmen and Freiswehr. And Roar gives Water Spearmen and Freiswehr as well. But, oh, because we're in the keep, sorry. Yeah, there's the upper tier barracks. It doesn't seem to be any different. But you wouldn't know anyway. If they train faster in castles, that's something that the game unfortunately doesn't tell you. Well, they can get a Gafford Mead Hall. Gafford? I don't know what that means. I don't know what any of these words mean, and I'm absolutely punting on how I think they would be pronounced. So I could be pronouncing them completely wrong, but I think it's cool to at least give it a go, isn't it? Always better to try rather than to just speak English at people. So, Marwini the War Chief, are you our factionaire? I would have thought so. Atulf of Dorwinion, King Fritigern, and Grand Prince Fravita. No, you're probably our heir, aren't you? Let's have a look at the family tree. Grand Prince Fravita, yes. Although Atulf is married to our daughter, Vidukwen. We've got Fourth Winnie as a son. Arva Vidusintha, who's married to Vravita, although she's married in. Vidukind and Farulf. Of course, the most famous Northman, arguably in the entirety of the Legendarium, is Prince Vidugavia, or indeed the descendants. Marwini as well is one, isn't he, actually? Although I don't think it's the same as the Marwini that we have in Aurora. But there's a famous Marwini who fights with Gondor, but my memory of each individual time period is failing me. But anyway, let us actually build something rather than just flock around. So let's go with communal farming and try and get our growth up. Try and get more people. More people is more taxes. So we'll go with farms first of all, because they give direct income as well as growth. And there we go, we've got 3 farms on the go. We make 3,000, that's not bad at all. Of course, the overview video, I toggled Fog of War and showed you the world. And I will do the same now, only because, of course, this is a brand new mod and many of you want to see what's going on. But it is, of course, cheating. But in the north, we have Esgaroth, Dalathales, and Erebor, none of which are held by anyone at the moment. The dwarves away to our north. Rune Confederacy hold the entire east, but there is a bit of a buffer between us and the east, so we can go and take that down first. Oh, we've got a region down there that I've completely ignored. We have a nice purple colour, as you can see. Away to our west are the Elves of Erun Gallen, which will become the Woodland Realm in time, and then further south of there's Lothlorien, of course. So that's a rough overview of the area that we're in, but that'll do for now. I don't want to show you the whole world. Needless to say, the realms in exile are in obviously Gondor and Arnor, and there's Men of the Mountains in the mountains. But I do just implore you, just watch the overview video, and then I don't have to say the same thing twice. Ortegard, I would ideally like roads there, but we can't afford them at the moment. But let's try and mop up some of these rebel-held regions. But first of all, let's find out how we cross the river. So Dorwinion is directly in the way. There's a crossing there, there's a crossing there, there's a crossing there. Oh, there's crossings bloody everywhere. Crossings there. So all of this land up here is free, and this land bordering Rune is free. But remember, we're at war with Rune, so we want to try and get shoring up those borders sooner rather than later. Now, none of these units are free upkeep, which is insane. Now, in DCI, upkeep is again returned to the town building. So the town and the castle building give you your recruitment and your upkeep, which does mean that you can't make a castle any better until you can upgrade it. So Rhovanion, for example, will only ever have 2 free upkeep and 2 recruitment slots until we can upgrade the town itself, which is some time away, which will take some getting used to because that's not what we do in Divide and Conquer, obviously. Now, we're going to get some units that will be free upkeep, so I'm going to take your entire army out. Because we just do not need... like, if you're not giving me free upkeep, you're costing me money, and it's just not worth having you all there. So, let's send our spy down to Rune to try and find out what they're going to do. And you guys cross the river and... Oh, you take him with you as well. Damn. Oh, look, there's Grasgard.
Your orders, my lord.
King Fritigern, you're going to head south and join up with Fravita. Oh, we don't want the heir and the king in the same army. Should have sent Fravita north and Marwini south. Damn.
Yes.
Adolf of Rhovanion, what general's bodyguard have you got? Gaffard Housecarls. And Fravita. Theoden's Knights. Oh, they look cool. And he's a cavalry general. He's going to be very powerful.
Yes, my lord.
Fritigern has Theoden's Knights. Cavalry as well. Marwini, Theoden's Knights. No, Reichista Knights. I'm not sure what our generic general's bodyguard is, but we'll find out, of course, when we get a general. But unless DCI has found some miracle method of changing the bodyguards, you still only ever get one type of bodyguard. Although they do have a switch bodyguard feature, and I think that's script related, because I know that Withmanar has helped with the creation of DCI Last Alliance, and he's brought a lot of his unique scripts to the game. Oh, each faction has its own information as well as Shift F1. I pressed Shift F1 and nothing happened because I've changed my keys and I can't change them back here at this menu. Wild men of Enedwaith and Numenorian kingdoms have gone to war. So be it.
Your order.
Right,
yes,
as I say, I don't want both of you in the same army. So...
Orders. By an order.
Marwini...
Yes.
Your orders, my lord.
Atalf, you go south, sorry,
Yes,
and
my lord.
Fravita, you go north.
Your orders, my lord. Yes, my lord.
And then you join
Your
up with his
orders, my
army.
lord. Yes,
Take
my lord.
Atalf with you. So there's 2 generals in both armies.
Your orders, my lord.
And then, oh look, you can get a unit of those as well. Take those with you.
March to
Are you recruiting something else in Rhovanion?
later.
Oh yeah, we've got some more units coming through. That's fantastic. Alright,
Yes,
otherwise
my
you're
lord.
heading north. You go with him.
Your
Now, I've
orders,
never
my
played
lord.
this game, I have to say. The only thing, as I'll talk about in a moment, as I promised at the beginning, is that I have played about 50 minutes of the Realms in Exile. But other than that, it's all I've done. So I don't know how difficult it's going to be. I don't know if we're going to get absolutely overrun. I don't know if we're going to get swamped, or if this is going to be a walk in the park. I don't know.
Yes,
and I
my
should
lord.
stress that this is a public beta.
I
So
shall
it's available to
continue
everyone. You can
tomorrow,
download it, and the links are in the
stopping
description
here.
below. But there's obviously much that will be changed and enhanced about the mod in time. So don't take it with a pinch of salt at the moment, because it is due for some changing and some editing and balancing and whatnot as they get more information from the public, which is the best way I think mods can get information, is to either take a big beta team and just get them all to test, or indeed just go live, let everyone know it's a beta, and let them do the testing for you. We obviously don't make any money out of modding, so we're not under pressure to sell our game, so we can do that. We can release an unfinished product, because then everyone who's installing it knows that A, they're not spending any money on it anyway, so they can do what they like, and B, that it is not finished, so there may be the odd
Yes, my
quirk.
lord.
An order.
Also, the damn Khazad army has just arrived at Grasgard.
Yes, my
Bugger.
lord.
Oh, at least we can talk to them
As
here
you-
then.
What is it you wish to
Oh, bribing returns. We're going to get the unend this tide of bribing. Trade rights. And would you like an alliance? Because I'd like an alliance. Yes. And then what about math information?
Reasonable proposal, we hope.
Now, the Dwarves of Khazad-dûm, as seen in the overview video, have a really interesting start because the game has opted to give them the old-school Third Age Total War version, where they have a nation here in the Iron Hills, they have a city here in Khazad-dûm, and they have a city in Ered Luin. They are completely spread across the world.
Yes.
So it'll be interesting to see how the AI handles that. Right, King
Your orders,
Fritigern.
my lord.
Hit
To
Alder
battle.
Naven.
We shall prevail.
My lord.
Theodani, keep going.
Approaching.
Kamboska.
Approaching.
They have cool-looking town strategy models. You could take a second unit. You can't get a second free upkeep, though, can you? And there is no other building that gives free upkeep. But I did just see Rhovanion has a cool little elven colony. What's that? Elven community. That looks cool. Settlement income of plus 200. Oh, that's nice. And it's just a simple... It's a nod to the Avari, basically, isn't it? They've got some really good UI in DCI, I have to say. I've been very impressed with their unique building UIs and things like this, where you know where your capital is. That's cool. And particularly with the Realms in Exile, they had a cool... They've reworked a lot of the UI for them to make it more unique.
I've tried
Right, what we're hoping for is the Khazad army to not win in Grasgard so that we can attack them. Oh, I forgot to move those troops down. Damn it. So, the Númenórean Kingdoms. I played as the Númenórean Kingdoms for about 50 minutes, and I intended to play as them as the campaign I was going to play. Because I think they're very much the flagship faction of this mod. They are what the whole mod is built around. The last alliance is, of course, primarily between the Realms in Exile and the Kingdom of Linden. That's just the barracks event message, by the way. I won't read that one. It just tells you that you're going to have to wait until all your barracks troops come. Same as it did in Third Age Total War. So I played as the Númenórean Kingdoms, and the problem that I found is the faction is enjoyable and it is fun, but it feels very similar to a faction like Gondor, like Dol Amroth, and I didn't think it really showed off enough new stuff, if that makes sense. I wanted to play as a faction that showed off that DCI offers something completely new. And I appreciate that, of course... we're going to go for the chicken farming in these three places. I appreciate that the Númenórean Kingdoms are new, if speaking completely plainly. Oh, that doesn't give money anymore, does it? Don't build anything in Aurora, then. So, the Númenórean Kingdoms are new. Gondor and Arnor, of course, at the moment, are both subsets of this large kingdom. And it works as it should. But the faction still feels and plays very similar to Gondor or Dol Amroth or the Northern Dunedain, in that you've got elite heavy infantry, you've got Minas Tirith, you've got Osgiliath, you've got places that you've seen countless times before. Ah, they didn't succeed, yes.
Finish them!
Nice. And so I wanted to play as something that was totally new. And so it was a toss-up in my mind between the Men of the Mountains or Rhovanion, and I was having a look over their rosters. And the Men of the Mountains feel very similar to Enid Wyeth and had a relatively smaller roster, whereas the Rhovanion roster seemed a lot bigger. So that's what pulled me in, because I like variety, and I like big rosters, I have to say. I like that you get sort of 10 units in the early game, then you hit about turn 50 odd, and you might get another 10 units, and then you might take the odd region and get a unique unit from it, and I quite like that. Whereas the Men of the Mountains had a relatively smaller roster by comparison. So I've chosen Rhovanion because of that. So that is why we're playing as Rhovanion.
Yes. Tomorrow's
And not the Realms in Exile. The other thing is, I wasn't actually overly sold on the huge split kingdom that the Realms in Exile have, with loads of settlements in the north and loads of settlements in the south. I just kind of felt overwhelmed, and also... well, not necessarily overwhelmed, but I suppose that is the word I would go with. But also I felt like the campaign wouldn't be very difficult. Now, of course, I'm prejudging that, and I shouldn't do that. We're all guilty of judging books by their cover. But with so many provinces available to you as the kingdoms, as the Númenóreans in the north, and very few enemies, I just struggled to see how the campaign was going to prove to be a challenge. And so I just wasn't sold, and I decided I'd play as someone else. So that's absolutely no indictment on the modders in any way, of course. None whatsoever. I just want to play as a faction that I know I'm really going to enjoy, and I will enjoy it the most if it has totally new material, and so that's why we're playing as Rhovanion. I'm sure many people will play as the Númenórean Kingdoms, and you yourself, of course, can play as them. But for me, it just didn't do it. I just wasn't as interested. I didn't want to play as the nation that's already sort of set up to be the powerhouse. Now, of course, I could have played as Mordor, which would have been interesting, because they've got a totally new roster, but I just can't bring myself to play as orcs. I just hate them so much. League against Sauron. Even though Sauron returned to Middle-earth not that long ago, following the destruction of Númenor in 3319 of the Second Age, he has unleashed his regained power of orcs, men, and beasts to wipe out all his remaining enemies once and for all. In 3429, he surprised the Gondorians, seized Minas Ithil, and burned the White Tree. Anarion took command of Gondor while his brother Isildur sailed north to their father, High King Elendil, in Arnor. The brothers knew that without help, Gondor would not survive. The worried Elendil discreetly communicated with his good friend Gilgalad, High King of the Noldor and the Elves of Eriador, and they have taken counsel together. Wise lords as they are, they perceive that Sauron will grow too strong and overcome all his enemies one by one if they do not unite against him. Therefore, the Dunedain and the Elves of Linden now declare a league, which will go down in history as the Last Alliance. Their military advisors start planning for joined military operations to commence within a few years.
My lord.
Aha, the runic capital of Mistrand, where we find Warlord Borthand, their faction leader, some runic fencers, some Balkoth tribesmen, and some runic spearmen. And this leads me on to the second part of why I played as Rhovanion, because the runic roster in DCI Last Alliance is really different from the roster in Third Age Total War. And so not only are we going to have units that we've maybe never seen before, we're going to fight against units that we've never seen before as well. And that is something I'm really looking forward to. So all things considered, that's why we're playing as Rhovanion. But what we do need to do is get some towers up, because we are blind as a bat out here at the moment. Have I got another general that I'm not using? Or is it just the 4? It was just the 4, wasn't it? Ah, bugger.
An order.
And we've sent Marwinian Frivata up to the north. I like the portraits for our nation as well. These are cool.
My lord. Orders.
Once we've taken Uldonovan, we probably should actually attack it rather than siege them out for 7 turns. Same with Grassguard, actually, shouldn't we? Aldwini, what have you got? Dorwinian retainers. Ah, yes, the old militia units have resurfaced, have made their way back into the game. Now, we've got 2 generals with cavalry bodyguard, and we've got a mounted archer, so we don't actually really want to attack them, because we're not designed for siege. But in the south, we've got an army of footmen, so we could attack here, just to get a feel of what the world has. We'll wait until these 2 units have joined, so we'll wait a couple of turns and then we'll siege Uldonovan so that we get a siege battle in this episode, which will probably end with the siege battle, actually. I'm going to record the first 3 episodes back to back. It's raining today. It's awfully, not very nice, but it is still very warm here in the UK. But it's a better temperature today, so I'll record 3 back to back, so I won't see any of your comments, I am afraid.
Yes, my.
Let's talk to the elves. Galleon, how are you doing? Your culture is host of the West. Our culture is, of course, Northmen. Trade rights.
I accept you have another worthy.
Oh, they don't like an alliance though. Elves keeping it amongst themselves. All right, let's just map information it up.
This proposal is of little interest.
The one then.
An honour and a pleasure.
Farewell. 500. So we only paid actually 100 gold coins for that map information. Oh, they're doing very well. Blimey, they've taken this side of the river as well. Ninglor. I don't know where the town is here. There's one town, Erin Gallen. Imathrad. But where's the other town? That's the question. It's this side of the river somewhere. I just can't see it. Ah, she's meowing, isn't she? Sorry if you can hear her. She wants to go out, but it's raining and she's a cowardly coward. Oh, Goblin Town. No, that's a large town. Oh, I don't know. Maybe, no, Imrathad is the one I'm thinking of. Yes, it is. Sorry, everyone. Wasting everyone's time. Right, let's keep moving the army. Get down there into position. Join Fritigan. Oh, the dwarves have come back. Haha.
Would you wish to speak? Yes.
But it is not to be, dwarves.
As you wish.
I have already taken the town.
Continue tomorrow.
Now, dwarves, are you at war with Rune? You are, aren't you, actually? Yes, we already know that because it was listed when we allied with them. Everywhere's building, except Aurora. Give us a bowyer. Darawada longbowman. Oh, we get Rigsvar here as well. Oh, they're effective against armor. They just seem like Vikings. Axes and round shields. But that's 3,200. Oh, but we can get it, so why not? Oh, it is getting warm in this room now, though. I always get hot when I record as well. I don't know why. Something about recording that puts me on edge. She's sitting right behind me, staring at me, her eyes boring into my soul. Now, I should possibly mention, I was tempted not to, but I've completely I've spent about an hour and a half fiddling around with my microphone to try and stop the peaks that my voice was crackling at because I had the microphone not set up properly. I've got a very good quality microphone, and I feel like I wasn't putting it to its best use. So I watched some videos, and I spent a lot of time fiddling around with it. So hopefully it's a bit better, and you're not getting peaks. But it could well mean that the sound, at the minute, it may not be ideal. I mean, the game sound compared to my voice, one or the other might be too loud or too quiet. But that is entirely subjective, and every time I say that, I always then get flooded with people saying, oh, I think this is too loud or this is too quiet. And when I change things and I don't mention it, no one comments. So it's one of those things where it's foolish to mention it. But I feel like I should, you know? I feel like despite what will happen, I should still mention it. Everywhere is building, and our army is now together.
Your
Let's
orders, my lord.
attack Aldonovan.
We shall
Fengel,
engage.
Sword Militia, 7 attack, 15 defense. Huntsman, 2. Oh wow, you're awful. You're just javelin troops, so when you finish with your javelin, you're downright awful. Peasant Axeman, 4 attack and 8 defense, and they're effective against armor. And then Fengel himself has a Gefaured Houseguards, which Atolf has actually. Atolf, bonus fighting cavalry and effective against armor. Oh, that's cool. 10 attack, 22 defense. They sound quite strong. No archers though, only the javelins. Only the javelins. There's some peasant spearmen as well. We've got Rigsvar down there, our axe one. We've got Gefaured Houseguards, and so is Atolf. 2 units of archers. I mean, we should win. Let's be honest, we should win. Let's call it battle. And in we go. King Fritigan.
Attack!
I have faith in thee. King Fritigan is mounted, so he might not really have much to do today. Now, one thing I would just warn you all with DCI Last Alliance, not necessarily warn, I feel rude saying that, but the Ents are a faction in this game again, and they actually have some very cool units. They have 3 units. One is an Ent, one is called a Great Horn, or a Grand Horn, I can't quite remember, and the other one is simply Horns, which are the sort of sentient trees. I know that people think Ents are sentient trees, but they're not. Ents are an actual race of beings. Whereas Horns are way more like sentient trees than actual beings. They are, of course, actual beings, but they could well be sentient trees. It's what I'm trying to say. And the Ent faction has these, but the Ent units and the Grand or Great Horn unit still uses the old Ent animations, and they crashed my game almost as soon as I used them in a custom battle. So I won't be fighting any Ents if we ever get over there. But that was partially another reason why I wanted to play as Rhovanion, because we are far, far away from the Ents and won't be troubled by their game-crashing qualities. And we won't be fighting against the Elves either, who also can train the Ents, I believe. Right, here is our roster. Just have a little look before we dive in. Here's our housecarls, looking very cool indeed. I really like simple Ute models, you know, not too many fancy fantasy whistles and bells. I don't mean simple in a derogatory term. I mean, like, imagine Final Fantasy or anime fantasy and how ridiculously over the top their armor and weapons always are. I'm just not about that. I like the more realistic, grounded fantasy-looking units, and that's what I should probably call them. Realistic, not simple. Very cool, our Theoden's Knights. I like the horse, but the barding on the horse is nice. And again, I love the little feather on the top. Sweet. We've got Wada Spearmen, they're just Rhovanion Spearmen. We've seen them before. Same with the Frisvar, they're just Rhovanion. Gefaured. We've just looked at those. Ah, here's the Rigsvar. You look very nice. Very high quality. I like that a lot. I'm going to be getting as many of you as I can. I like playing as humans as well, I have to confess. Even in Lord of the Rings, humans are still up there as some of my favourites. And indeed, the Númenóreans are actually my favourite, sort of, after Dol Amroth, my favourite, like, race or faction in Middle-earth. I like Númenor a lot. Particularly when they're good. I don't really care for them being not good. Now, let's see if the towers are going to do anything. And I assume boiling oil has been turned off, but at the minute it seems like the towers... oh, they've got a bit of a light streak behind the fire arrows. No, I think that's always been there. So at the moment, what I'm taking away from this instant barrage against this big, strong castle is that arrow towers are about as strong as they were in Third Age, which is to say they're weak and pathetic. So I don't think we have to worry about any losses, really. It'll be absolutely inconsequential if we lose anyone in this siege. We will send Atolf in. Let's get him involved early doors. But of course, our Theoden's Knights are going to hang back. And what does our faction leader actually look like? Oh, very fancy. Royal, imperial purple colouring, which is nice. Yeah, he's got a sort of wolf cape on. Yeah, cool. Speaking of wolves, this game has them, and I'd be very, very interested in finally learning how to add animations into our own game, which I'm sure with just some trial and error, and indeed some time, anyone can learn these things. That's how modding works. If someone can do it somewhere, anyone can do it. And up until now, we've always not put the wolves in because we haven't been able to fiddle around with the animation file. But I've seen them in the custom battle, and they look really cool, so I would quite like to get wolves in the game. Angmar is crying out for having a wolf unit as well to aid their cavalry. I'd really like it. Particularly because Rome Total War had war dogs, so you wonder why they did away with them in Medieval 2. Bugger. Right, everyone, you're going to have to just run in. You're not really the you're not really the best unit to have there, to be honest, Warder Spearman. We want a unit that's got some punch to get through that gate. But the main army comes up behind. Who are we up against? Peasant Spearmen. What's the difference? Peasant Spearmen, 3 attack, 10 defense. Warder Spearmen, 3 attack, 10 defense. They are identical to one another. So it is just a case of who's going to get more oomph. And I think our army will. How many have we lost so far to the towers? 3%, not very much at all. Archers, are you firing? Yes,
If we continue like this, we will smash the enemy.
Arcing shots, but that's not the end of the world. Sword militia on the wall, even though we don't have any towers or siege, any ladders or towers. There's their general, and there's their huntsman sitting back. I do like these battle maps. I really do like these battle maps. It's small, but it's defensive. It looks powerful and strong. I mean, this is 10 times better than a Warhammer Siege, because you get to actually defend and fight in the whole place. And even though it's a very short walk from the gate to the square, there's still room to maneuver around. It just looks nice, doesn't it? Aha, the army is broken through. We're sending everyone, which is bad, because it means they are all affected by fatigue. If one unit of the battalion is fighting, then the whole battalion is suffering fatigue loss. Oh, wow. Bandits do not have very much morale. Look at that. We've just totally absorbed that unit. Right. Send in the 2 armor piercing. Oh, and the javelins actually would be good. Oh, and a Tauf. Get a Tauf up here as well. Wait until the javelins come. Not too worried about the rest. We don't want to be fighting on walls if we can help it. Ah, bugger. Sword militia from behind. That's right. You can double team them.
The battle is very much in our favour. Victory will be ours.
Get in close and throw your javelins at those housecarls. Yes, nice. And give him another volley. Nice. And have you got another one? How many javelins have you got? Ah, it doesn't say.
The enemy are badly bloodied. They have lost half their men.
Keep going, go on. Come on! Come on! Throw your javelins! Why aren't you obeying my commands? They don't want to, do they? They don't want to for fear of hitting their own men. It's alright, I'm happy with casualties. I frequently kill my own men. Not on purpose, of course. It just happens, you understand. It just happens. I don't intend it to happen. It just happens. Now when you throw your javelins, just side on. Oh, lovely. Look at that. The whole line just took a step to the left. We probably are killing some of our own, but we're not too concerned. We've just got to get ready. I'm cautious that Rune is going to be very powerful, and they're going to come at us with a lot of troops. So I'm just keeping myself ready for that, and we don't want to lose too many troops here. Because, as I say, I think Rune are going to be right on top of us. From what I've seen from certain comments in the Divide and Conquer Discord, is that the game's balance is to try and make many troops similar in fighting quality. So whereas Divide and Conquer has the policy of sort of like... The High Elves, of course, are just the finest warriors. Basically, a High Elf with a pike or a sword or a spear is likely the best unit in the game with a pike or a sword or a spear. So they're really powerful, but they're very costly and they take a long time to recruit. But they're so strong that the campaign's a bit of a doddle. Whereas from what I have seen, and I've yet to really test this myself, I'm very new to the mod, but from what other people have suggested, is that this game takes a bit more of a balanced approach between the fighting abilities of all the nations, so it is a bit more balanced inherently. Your best unit will be as good as everyone else's best unit, give or take, for example. So then it eliminates any faction having an inherent advantage. But I haven't looked at the stats myself. I cannot corroborate that fact. That is purely hearsay, and I would suggest you do not take that as fact. So always question everything. Anyway, let's speed this up. This is over. This is a nice city to defend if the forces of Rune do come, though. It's a shame that the towers are weak, but we've got at least the nice walls. They won't be getting through those without catapults and ladders and towers and whatnot. Are we just waiting for the general to die? We are, aren't we? Oh, something I should mention as well, just very quickly, well, this is the first one. If you want to have your UI look like mine, go to UI options and turn on minimal HUD. The alternative is it looks like this, which gives you the clickable button, which flashes your own troops, and it tells you how many people you've captured, as you can see there. But you can, and you get your little map down in the corner rather than up in the top right. But I think this one just takes up way too much of the screen. I've always preferred the minimal UI, even though it doesn't allow me to have the flash button, which, as you can see, flashes my own units. That's the only thing you lose, that and the capture icon. But you change it by just turning it on. It's not a mod feature, it is purely a game feature. But I much prefer this setup. And also I can turn that setup off with the click of a button, which I like. Which I think you can do with the other way as well, but this way is the way I know. 208 men died. That's not very many at all, is it? And the golden sword goes to the Gefauwd Housecarls. The ones that aren't commanded by a Tulf, though, he only got 90, but they are the second. So the silver sword went to a Tulf. Rhovanion already stamping its mark on the world and saying, hey, we're Rhovanion, and we're going to rock this world. Quite rightly, sir.
We have triumphed.
One of the key defining factors in why I thought, you know what, actually, I don't want to play as the Realms in Exile, is the first battle and the primary battle in the first episode that I'd recorded of the Númenóreans was me retaking Minas Ithil. And I retook it very easily, and I thought, I fought here so many times. It really does just feel like I'm playing as Gondor again. So that's why I just didn't want to play as them. Right, Donovan, you can get a port, which will give us trade with ourselves because there's no one at the end of that river, so it doesn't really matter. Let's turn you into a military front as well. Oh, stables, yes, please. Always turn castles into military if you can, because they just don't get as many non-military based buildings. Right, King Fritigan, I know it's way beneath you because you are the king of our people,
orders, my
but if
lord.
you could head out and build some towers,
Tower
because you
will
have a
keep
horse,
vigil
and you
over
are
the
therefore my
lands.
fastest general.
Yes.
Down in Outgard, you've given me another Warder Spearman. The Warder Spearmen, and they're not bad. They're a good militia tier unit, to be honest. But if we can get free upkeep everywhere, that's what we're going to go for. But that is going to be where I'm going to end this first episode. But before I do, I will now give you a full toggle fog of war so that you know what the world looks like. So, away to our west, as I've already mentioned, Erun Gallan. To their west, there's Lothlorien, and as we're only 7 turns in, I can only assume many of these captures are turn 1 auto-expansions like we use in Divide and Conquer. The Misty Mountains are the chief enemy in the north, stretching all the way from the Worm Vale in the Withered Heath across Gundabad and scaling down the mountain to the dwarves of Khazad-dûm, where King Durin IV resides. The Ents are obviously in Fangorn. There's no Rohan yet. The Men of the Mountains live in the land that will be Calanathan, or maybe already is. I can't remember when it was given that name. I don't think we know. So it's another non-falsifiable. It could well be called Calanathan at the moment, but it might not have been. But we just don't know. But the Men of the Mountains live here. And of course the Númenórean kingdoms, they now stretch right out to Andrast. Itheland is held by Lothlorien, which is a feature of at this time. Before Amroth dies, Itheland is held by Lothlorien. Mordor are pushing out on the Númenóreans. You'll note that Caer Andros has not yet been built, so that is just an island in the River Anduin. But it is a crossing point. Londare has fallen to the Northern Realms in exile, and their chief north enemy are the peoples that will go on to become the Men of Rhudaur, but at the moment are just the Hillmen of the North. So if we look at the Kingdom of Númenor, they are enemies with Mordor, the Wild Men of Enedwaith, and Harad, but they're not actually at war with the Northmen yet then, so maybe that will come. Of course, I would expect that Khazad-dûm will do very little because their split nation thing, I'm not sure the AI is going to handle that very well. So I don't expect much from the dwarves. Lindon and the Númenórean kingdoms, this is my early turn, what I am expecting to happen. I think the Númenóreans and the Kingdom of Lindon will wipe the floor with anything here in the north, and they will easily win up here. I think Mordor will probably win in the south, because they probably are set up to be stronger, until the last alliance kicks in. Oh look, we already boarded Mordor. It's not as bad fighting against Mordor this time, because they've got new units, so at least be a bit new. But our main enemy is going to be the behemoth that is Rune. And it's got some Candish units thrown in as well. Cand is part of Rune in this mod. Harad, which is a cross between Dax Ardenaim, or more accurately, the Black Númenóreans and the Haradrim. There isn't actually anything from Dak in this mod, so I'm not saying they've taken anything or they're using anything, and not in a, even if they were, they're allowed to, but I don't think they've chosen to. So Umbar is a mix of Black Númenóreans and Haradrims, but again, a lot of their units are new. A lot of the units throughout the mod are new, but there are the odd ones that pop up that you recognise from Third Age Total War. But Enedwaith obviously hold down the lands that will be Dunland and are a chief southern enemy for the realms. But the realms will creep up on them from the south as well. So We shall see. But anyway, that's going to conclude episode number 1. So I hope you see what you are seeing at the moment. I am going to continue playing this campaign until we have won or lost, whichever comes first. And as I've already mentioned, the mod is not on Discord or any type of Discord. So if you want to talk to the modders themselves, you've got to go to ModDB, but preferably Total War Center. The mod can be downloaded from ModDB, and the installation video, which was created by Athelstan, is linked in the description of this video, so you can learn how to install it. But it's very, very easy to install. It's a no-brainer. You could turn your brain off and you'll install it properly. I shouldn't say that because lots of people might do that and then not install it. But it is very easy to install.
Planned out.
And it is just fun fighting in a different time period. And I'm very eager to see how the Last Alliance actually goes. In the actual lore, in the lore that we know, the Last Alliance kicked off in 3430, so right now. And it lasted 11 years, and at the end of the 11 years, Sauron was thrown down and the war was won. But of course, it cost the lives of Amdir of Lorien, Orifer of the Woodland Realm, Gilgalad of Lindon, and Elendil of the High King, the Elendil of the High Kingdom of the Dunedain, and Anarion of the South, along with 3 of Isildur's sons. Although I think possibly his sons actually die in the ambush at the Gladden Fields and not at the Last Alliance. But I can't quite remember specifically. Oh, Calicat went to bed, which is good. So we can record another one without him yowling. But anyway, for now, that will end this one. So thank you very much for watching, if indeed you have. I do hope you've enjoyed. I hope you will enjoy. I hope you will play this mod. And my thanks go out to the DCI team, and specifically in Googie, for the 8+ years of work they've put into this. And to finally see it come to fruition is just fantastic. So I implore you to explore DCI Last Alliance and have some fun with it. But until we speak again, dear friends, Navar and Den Penabad Melonin, and farewell.